They barricaded themselves in the emergency pod bay, the smallest room in the station, one entrance, easy to defend. And if everything went wrong, the escape pods were right there. Not that the pods would save them. At this depth, an emergency ascent would take hours. Hours the entity could use to freeze them inside the pods, to crack them open like eggs, to add them to its collection, but it was better than nothing. Marcus checked the station's structural integrity. The numbers were bad. Hull integrity at 42%. We've got multiple microfractures spreading through sections B, C, and D. The entity is using pressure manipulation to tear us apart from the inside. How long? Sarah asked. At this rate, 6 hours before catastrophic failure. Maybe less. Rebecca was monitoring Ahmed's location through the station's internal sensors. He's in the main chamber. Just standing there, not moving, like he's waiting for something. He's waiting for the station to fail, Sarah said. The entity doesn't need to attack us directly. It just has to wait for the pressure to do the work. Marcus slammed his fist against the wall. We're trapped. We can't fight something that controls the water itself. We can't escape. We can't even call for help. There might be a way, Sarah said quietly. She'd been studying the ancient texts for hours, cross-referencing with the station's thermal data. The entity lives in pressure, thrives in cold. But there's one thing it can't survive: extreme heat. The thermal vents, exactly. The vents output water at 700 degrees Celsius. Hot enough to melt steel. Hot enough to kill the entity. How do we lure it there? It's smart, it won't just follow us into a trap. We make it personal. We make it angry. We give it a target it can't resist. Marcus understood immediately. A human target. Someone outside the station. The entity wants to reach the surface. If we show it a way up, if we make it think we're escaping, it'll follow. And we lead it right into the thermal stream. Rebecca shook her head. That's suicide. Whoever goes outside won't survive. The pressure at this depth, even in a dive suit, is barely survivable. And the ice creatures. I'll do it, Marcus said. I'm the commander. This is my responsibility. Marcus, you'll die. Maybe. But if I don't, we all die. At least this way we have a chance. Sarah pulled up the station's schematics. Here's the plan. We flood Section D deliberately. Create a passage from the main chamber to the external airlock. The entity will follow the water, thinking we're creating an escape route. Marcus will be outside, leading it toward the thermal vent cluster. When the entity gets close, we override the vent controls and release a concentrated burst. 700 degrees, focused on a single point. And Marcus. He'll have 10 seconds to get clear. The dive suit can handle the heat for maybe 15 seconds. It'll be close. Marcus looked at the plan, at the numbers, at the probability of success displayed on the screen. 23%. Better than zero. When do we start? Now. We don't have time to wait. They suited Marcus up in the heavy-duty dive suit, rated for depths of 8 miles. Reinforced titanium exterior. Life support good for 6 hours. It was the best equipment humanity had ever created for deep-sea exploration. It was the best equipment humanity had ever created for deep-sea exploration. It was the best equipment humanity had ever created for deep-sea exploration. It was the best equipment humanity had ever created for deep-sea exploration. It was the best equipment humanity had ever created for deep-sea exploration. It was the best equipment humanity had ever created for deep-sea exploration. It was the best equipment humanity had ever created for deep-sea exploration. It was the best equipment humanity had ever. Rebecca checked his seals. Suit pressure is stable. Communication link is active. We'll guide you every step. Marcus looked at them through the helmet visor. If this doesn't work, if I don't make it, tell my family I was doing what I loved. You're going to tell them yourself, Sarah said. But her voice cracked. They activated the flooding sequence. Section D's emergency vents opened. Water poured in, controlled, creating a passage toward the external airlock. The pressure equalized slowly, allowing the water to spread without causing explosive decompression. And in the main chamber, Ahmed's head turned. The entity felt the water, sensed the change. And it moved. It's following, Rebecca reported. Ahmed is heading toward Section D. Marcus entered the airlock. The water was already waist-deep. Cold. Even through the suit, he could feel the temperature dropping. The entity's influence was spreading through the station. "Remember," Sarah said over the comm, "you need to lead at 300 meters east. That's where the thermal cluster is strongest. We'll track your position and time the vent release." The outer door opened. Marcus stepped into the ocean. 7 miles of water above him, 7 miles of darkness below, and somewhere in that darkness, hundreds of ice creatures waiting. He activated the suit's lights. Twin beams cut through the black water, revealing nothing but emptiness. But Marcus knew they were out there, watching. Circling, he moved toward the thermal vents. The suit's navigation system showed the path. 300 meters. In open water, with limited visibility, and a creature hunting him that could kill with a thought. The comm crackled. "Ahmed just left the station. He's following you." Marcus looked back. Through the murky water, he could see lights from the station. And a shape moving through the darkness. Fast. Too fast. The entity was swimming, using Ahmed's transformed body like it was built for the deep. Because maybe it was. Maybe the transformation wasn't just possession. Maybe it was evolution. Marcus swam fast. 200 meters to the vents. The water was getting warmer. He could feel it through the suit. They were close. "Marcus, you've got company. Multiple contacts, ice creatures." Converging on your position, Marcus saw them. Shapes in the darkness. Pale, humanoid, moving with predatory grace. They circled him, keeping distance, waiting for orders from their master. 100 meters. The entity was gaining. Marcus could hear it now, not through the water. Through his mind, the same whispers Ahmed had heard. Ancient to such 'em up. Vast, hungry. You can't escape. You can't hide. We are the deep. We are eternal. 50 meters. The water was hot now. Uncomfortable even through the suit, Marcus could see the thermal vents ahead, massive cracks in the seafloor, belching superheated water in thick columns. "Get ready," Marcus said. "When I give the signal, open the vents full. Copy that." 20 meters. The entity was right behind him, close enough that Marcus could feel the cold radiating from it. Feel his suit's heating system struggling to compensate. 10 meters. "Now," Marcus screamed. Sarah triggered the override. The thermal vents erupted. Controlled bursts designed to create energy became weapons. 700-degree water exploded outward in a concentrated stream, aimed directly at the entity. The entity shrieked, not with a voice, with the water itself. Every molecule around them vibrated with its pain. The ice creatures dissolved instantly, unable to survive the heat, and Ahmed's body, the transformed host, began to burn. The entity released him, abandoned the dying flesh, became pure energy, pure cold, a creature of the deep trying to escape the fire. But Sarah had anticipated that. She'd opened all the vents simultaneously, created a cage of superheated water. And in the center, the entity had had nowhere to go. It fought, pushed back with cold so intense the thermal water began to freeze midstream. But the vents were fed by the Earth itself, by magma and pressure and heat that had existed since the planet formed. The entity couldn't win against that. It dissolved, screamed, and died. Marcus watched from outside the thermal cage, watched the ancient thing that had slept for 10,000 years finally die. And then he swam, fast as the suit would allow, away from the heat, back toward the station. Rebecca's voice on the comm was crying. "You did it. Marcus, you did it. The entity is gone. Status on the station. Hull integrity stabilizing. The pressure attacks have stopped. We're going to make it." Marcus let himself feel relief. For the first time in days, he let himself believe they might survive. And then he saw the structure, the ancient prison in the trench, the place where the entity had been sealed. It was different now. The entrance was wide open, and from inside lights were glowing. Not the pale lights of ice creatures. Different lights. Warmer. Orange and red, like fire. "Sarah," Marcus said slowly, "what else was in that structure? What else did we release?" Sarah pulled up the probe footage, studied the images of the pods, the eggs, and she saw what she'd missed before. The entity they'd killed wasn't alone. The pods weren't containers, they were offspring. Hundreds of them. And now that the parent was dead, they were hatching. "Marcus, get back here now. What's happening? We didn't kill the entity. We killed its guardian. It was keeping the others dormant, controlled. And now, The lights in the structure flared, and from the entrance, shapes began to emerge. Not ice creatures. Something else, something worse. Fire creatures, made of superheated water and volcanic energy. The opposite of the cold entity, and just as ancient, just as deadly. They rose from the structure, dozens of them, moving toward the station. They're coming, Sarah whispered. Dozens of them. Moving toward the station. They're coming, Sarah whispered. The entity was the lock, and we just opened the door to something that will burn the ocean. Marcus looked at the creatures rising from the deep, at the station that couldn't survive another attack, at his crew trapped inside, and he made a decision. Sarah, can you reach the surface? Can you warn them? What? Marcus, we need you, the escape pod. Take it. Unch now. Get to the surface and warn everyone. Tell them to evacuate the coasts. Tell them something is coming from the deep. We're not leaving you. You have to. Someone has to survive to tell the story. Someone has to warn the world. Rebecca's voice joined in. Marcus, there has to be another way. There isn't. I'm sorry. But you two are young. You have families. I don't. This is my choice. The fire creatures were 50 meters away now. 40. Moving fast. Launch the pod. That's an order. Sarah and Rebecca had seconds to decide. Stay and die. Or launch the pod and maybe survive. Maybe warn the surface. Maybe save the world. They chose to live. The escape pod launched, rocketing toward the surface. And Marcus turned to face the fire creatures alone. He smiled. After everything, after the pressure and the cold and the fear, at least he wouldn't die alone. The creatures reached him, surrounded him, and Deep Station Alpha exploded in a ball of fire that turned 7 miles of ocean into steam.